Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town. All right, Tyler Gould, we are developing quite a track record here, the richest men in town, as two guys that get it done when it comes to tracking down people living rich lives. Derek Anderson, a while back, gives us a lead on a guy from his church, Steve Mollman, and we got him in the boat. Richest Men in Town. This episode, we spend a little bit of time with our guy, Steve. What did Steve teach you?
Man, Steve was probably one of the nicest guys we've ever talked to. I mean, and everybody we talked to is very nice, but Steve, he's a new level. He's a new level of nice. I really, what I love about Steve, he talks a lot about this discovering a relationship with God when he was in his 20s. And then he says later on, as we're talking, he says, I lost my peace. And he talks about that journey to get that back. I really love that, his willingness to share that journey, because I think it's very relatable, right? Having ideas of what our life should be or could be, or what we think we deserve or what we're owed. And when that doesn't come to fruition, there's some hard things that we have to face. And Steve really paints a great picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, again, open, honest with frustration in life, right? Things don't go the way we have it planned. What did he say? Sometimes, like, I was living with my eyes inside out.
Yeah.
Right. I was seeing me, and I wasn't necessarily seeing the other things that God had planned for me. I can see what Derek sees when he hangs out with Steve at church on Sunday, right? Absolutely. Steve's busy. Steve's actually in a place where he feels like he's doing God's work. He's helping guys out. He's got a mentor discipleship. Shout out to the folks at the Stirring for the work that they're doing in their Emerge program. What was it like? Just helping guys who want to get closer to God, who want to fix things, and who want to get it right.
And it's interesting because he says it only took me 30 years to get here. Right. I love that honesty in that. I thought it was great.
Talks about being complete. And there's just a couple of things. Steve gives you a little throwback vibe.
Yeah.
Right. A little kind of classic answers, classic truth, like not a lot of moving parts, right? A faith that is rock centered on the things that matter most. Sandy, married 47 years and super grateful, for the love that she has given him since the third grade.
Yeah, and he lets us on some sacred experiences that he had with his wife and with his father towards the end of his father's life. I mean, one of the things that Steve said that I had written down, he said, our lives are meant for others. And Steve really kind of personifies that tonight when he talks about the work that he's doing.
Yeah, throws in some Paul, right? I'm giving you the comfort. I'm giving you that same comfort that God has given me. And it's not for me to hold. It's for me to give in service of other people. I love this idea, too, he shares, of displaying results. Like, I'm going to put it down every day, and hopefully someone around me might get a sense of the peace that I have and be curious. And we get it. We get it. You hang out with them, and I love that thought of peace, right? Today, here we are, Christmas time. It is about peace on earth, and it is about being quick to give a reason for that peace. And Steve is just that. He is quick. He talks a little bit about trust and how it's important when we are working, trying to help other people, that we get vulnerable. We let them in and say, look, I'm not coming to you from a place of better. I'm not coming to you from a place of perfect. I'm coming to you a place of real. And like, how does that work, right? Can I maybe help you get real with some of the things that you might be dealing with. So, Derek, tip of the hat to Derek Anderson. Again, we appreciate the referral. Anyone out there that is doing some cool things, we do have a social media presence on Facebook and Instagram. We invite you to drop a name, right? Jump on, drop a name, and we will hunt them down. Tyler,
That's it.
always good. Always good to hang out with you. To Steve Mollman, to the Mollman family, thank you so much for the way you're living your lives. Steve, thank you. Keep going, brother. We love the way that you showed up tonight. And we hope that our listeners get something out of our time with Steve Mollman in this episode of The Richest Men in Town.
Yeah.
I will tell you that lists do help you get it right when it comes to the misses, and you don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
No one likes Christmas morning with the kind of buzzkill, nothing fits, wrong color, that kind of stuff. So
that's true. That's true. Although I like to take several shots in the dark for Christmas.
Yeah.
Like in my own mind, like I've got it. I'm like, I know her. We've been together a long time.
Give
like,
this go.
Yeah, I got this. And I swing. I do it. And then, mixed reviews, man.
One thing that would probably shock you that is on my Christmas list.
Let me hear it.
Bath bombs.
Really? Okay.
So like I've completely lost credibility in your mind, right? Like I'm Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, and now I'm bath bombing it. But I'm a bather, man. Give me some. I'm just wondering,
like, what came first? Like in my mind, it was like Thanksgiving morning came around. You opted out of football to a parade, and then as you were sitting there, you're like, you know what?
I'm out of bath bombs. So I got this jacuzzi tub in the house, and I can guarantee you, I have used it 95% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big tub guy.
Yeah.
I think like the tub comes into play when I'm in the throes of a major flu episode where I just have to lay and soak. Other than that, I just need the convenience of a shower, I guess. But I like it though. I there's no judgment here. I feel like everyone's got their thing,
Bubble gum and bath bombs. Merry Christmas. That's all I need.
Shoot, that makes it pretty easy, man.
That's all I need. And you know what? Tuning in First Presidency Christmas devotionals got me jonesing for some Charles Dickens Christmas Carol, man. I'd like to pull that up, read that thing before the big day comes. So,
All right. Is that going to happen?
Yeah, that's becoming an annual tradition.
You read Charles Dickens, A Christmas Carol every year.
Carol. It's a short read. I think it's 79, 80 pages. And I think it's right up there. You would be interested in knowing, did you know that It's a Wonderful Life the original story came from a book called The Greatest Gift?
I feel like I've read that, but I've never read The Greatest Gift, I should say.
Yeah, so I tried to, and it's not even close, man. It doesn't even come close. Right? If you love the movie, stay away from the book,
I feel like Zuzu is going to make an appearance on this show at some point, right?
We are efforting hard.
Yeah, I know that we're working.
Zuzu.
The original Zuzu.
Yeah.
Is considering.
Yeah. And hey, our unofficial sponsor of this episode, Cinemark, is showing It's a Wonderful Life on December 17th across the country. Oh. So there you go. That's another annual tradition where we get together, do the popcorn, and watch It's a Wonderful Life on the big screen.
Wow. I don't know that there's a Cinemark down here in the San Diego area.
Okay.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Okay. Well, I like that though.
They bring the classics. They bring the classics out, and nothing like it on the big screen.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Well, shoot, I'm excited about tonight. We've got a friend of a friend.
Yeah, shout out to Derek Anderson once again. Derek Anderson's like, I got a guy. Steve Mollman is our guy. And so we want to honor Derek Anderson. If game recognizes game, Derek's living a rich life, doing some cool things here in the Reading area in his faith community and among friends. And he's got a guy, get him in the show. You know what I'm saying? So here we are.
Yeah, it's not a surprise, right? We've had a lot of episodes of
a
really
lot
good
of trust,
people.
A lot of trust right now.
There is a lot of trust, and so I'm excited, man. I think let's open the door to Steve. Let's welcome him in to this great studio that we have, and we'll have a chat. We'll get to know what Steve's all about, right?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be curious to get his thoughts on why maybe Derek is picking on him.
Yeah, and I think we need to hear from Steve about what is his go-to Christmas movie, right? 'Tis the season. I'm curious if there's a go-to read like you have, or a movie that is just every year it happens.
Yeah, in church the other day, Grinch was kind of getting a bad rap.
Right? Grinch is a bad dude. Like,
yeah, but in the end,
his heart is two sizes, grows two sizes. Absolutely.
I mean, in the end, he gets it. These are the words. You know what I'm saying? Like, then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. So even the Grinch, right?
Even the Grinch caught the vision on some level. So that's exciting.
Steve, welcome to the richest men in town. Steve, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're fantastic.
Fantastic. We're excited about the opportunity to get to know you a little bit. And
it's a privilege. I've never done this before, so it's really I'm really blessed. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate your time, and we know who to blame for this, right? So
yes, we do. He's a
good
guy.
He is
Derek
a good guy.
Anderson is a good friend of ours and a great friend of yours, and he thinks the world of you, Steve. And he's been on our show, and every once in a while we reach out to folks, say, "Talk to me. Who's in your life that you're admiring?" And he loves the life you're living. So here we are, getting to know you a little bit.
Well, that's great. I love Derek. We've had the privilege, and I've had the honor of ministering with him somewhat on a sort of a mentor discipleship program of sorts at our church. So we spent some time together doing that, and I love the guy.
He's a great guy. When Derek, I don't know what came first. Did we reach out to you, or did Derek give you a heads up that we'll reach out to you?
He kind of gave me a heads up.
Okay.
Several months ago, actually. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, what goes through your head when Derek says to you, "Hey, Steve, you know what? There's a podcast that I think you're perfect for."
I'm thinking, what? Me? What did I do?
Yeah.
So, he and there's another guy too. You guys remember Andy Morgan?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Andy and I work together.
Oh, wow.
We're side by side every day, and he's told me about this too. So,
well, we love Andy. He's,
a couple of months ago, I had the opportunity to go to church, go to your church group, and catch up and sit down with Derek, and met up with Mike as well.
Yes, Mike Drury. Oh
yeah, Mike Drury and Andy Morgan. We've got a couple of common friends coming out of your group. So good things. Yeah. Good things happening there.
Yes, they really are. They really are. Yes.
Talk to me about this mentor discipleship.
So it's what do we call it? We call it an intensive, not really a program, but it's called Emerge, and students sign up for it if they want to. They basically mainly they're wanting to get closer to God. Got things in their life they want to settle up and fix and get right, and they want to get closer to God. So a couple of our pastors have put this program together. They've used it elsewhere. I think we've done it about 10 years now at the Stirring. And each student is signed a mentor, and then they are also put in a tribe of mixed men and women, and they meet once a week, and then they meet with their mentors once a week, and they have a monthly meeting where the pastors do some speaking and talking to them. Then they would go on a couple of retreats through the year, and they're the last couple of years, the mentors that I've been in, we've done mentor groups where we've had two mentors and say 4 or 5 guys, and that really seems to work really well with the guys. So, I've done it 5 years now. Derek was in the program himself as a student, and then I believe last year he was a mentor, and now he's doing a kind of a group mentoring thing. So I took this year off, but it's great. I love it. I think it's what God has called me to do. So that's why I do it.
Okay, well that is that is a little preview of where we want to end up, right? We love that life. We want to know how Steve becomes Steve, right? So like we're patterned after It's a Wonderful Life, or we love that movie. We love the story of George Bailey. We love the story of his struggles, and we love how his story starts, right? His story starts talking to us as a 12-year-old boy playing on a frozen pond, right? So Steve, talk to us a little bit. Take us back. Where does your story begin?
Well, I was born and raised in Central Oregon, a little town called Madras, Oregon. A lot of people know where Bend, Oregon is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's north of Bend a ways there. And it had maybe 1,400 people the whole time I was growing up. My dad was a farmer, cattle rancher. I got 4 brothers and no sisters. My wife and I met on recess one day on the playground. She was in the 3rd grade and I was in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
And her brothers have known my brothers for years. We played baseball together and hung out. So
3rd and 4th grade.
yeah. Then along about the age of 23, I opened my heart up and let the Lord Jesus come in, and we attended a church up there that was really good place. The pastor was an amazing teacher and just an amazing guy. And he was friends with
what's his name?
His name is Bob Zachary. He's passed away since, but he was good friends with a pastor down here in Redding. You might know him, Pastor Royal Blue. Man who's been in Redding for years and years in a Bible college here. So I felt like the Lord was calling me to the ministry. So I packed up my family and we moved here. And part of that story is I kind of made my wife and my kids move whether they wanted to or not. So I went to Bible college, went for 4 years and graduated. And the Lord had a different plan, which I know now is better. But that's what brought us here. We stayed. I had a job. I had a really good job. And so we stayed, raised our 2 kids, and now they're married, and I have 4 grandchildren, which are amazing. And here I am.
Okay, so yeah, help me. Let's go to pre 23 years old, right? Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that experience. How do you, I think there's lots of different ways to say it. For our sake tonight, how did you meet Jesus?
Well, one of my older brothers, has always been very close to me since I was little. Him and I just bonded together for some reason. You know how some brothers do that more than others. And so him and I did that. And he had met Jesus, maybe a year or 2 before I did. And of course, I'm watching him all the time because I want to be like him. He's my favorite brother. And so I'm looking at him and watching him, and I'm thinking he's got something different about him. Something about him is amazing, and something has changed him, and I want that same thing. And so I think he noticed that, and he became hanging around more often than normal. He's 6 years older than me, um, but one day we were hanging out. I don't remember what we were doing exactly, but we drove home and we pulled into the driveway at my house, and he began to just tell me about what the Lord Jesus had done for him, and that if I was interested and wanted to know more about that, then just let him know. And so I said, well, how about right now? And so I prayed the prayer and opened my heart up to Christ at that point.
Steve, was religion a part of your life as a young child in your home? Was that something that was familiar to you at that point?
When I was say before junior high, I went to church with my mom and dad, Sunday school, and that kind of thing. So I knew about God and I knew about Jesus and all the stories and all that, But along about junior high, I guess I thought I was too cool for that, so I didn't go anymore.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think, when you look back on that time when you're sitting with your brother, was that purely, hey, I see something different in him? Was that I recognize something that I want? Was that a combination of those things? Was it you recognize things from your youth? Do all those things converge at that time, or is it just looking at your brother saying he's made changes and I want to make changes?
Yeah, I wanted what he had. He had something I didn't know what it was, but I knew I wanted it. And it's kind of crazy how God will use the times and the events of the day to bring us to Him. We have a lot of things going on in the world right now today, and back then there was a lot of things going on then too. The Iran hostage crisis was going on, and things of that nature really made me start thinking what's going on here. And so I would ask him about that, and he would tell me what he thought the Bible said all about that, and it just really sparked my interest. And I didn't the all those events kind of created an uneasiness in me. There was no peace in me, and I could see there was peace in him. So what he had, I wanted that peace.
Yeah. I love that.
How do you, I often talk to kids about this, but I think I'd be interested in getting your opinion. How do you help somebody? Maybe you've had some experience too in some of your mentorship and in some of that ministry effort. How do you help people cross the bridge from knowing about him to knowing him? Right? I talk to kids all the time. This isn't about a History Channel. This is about intimate, personal relationship. How do you help people cross that bridge?
Well, you've got to earn their trust first of all, and not be phony with them at all. Be real, and let them know you're not perfect. My story involves a downfall and a recovery and places I shouldn't have gone and the coming back. But and honestly, Mike, I'm not much of an evangelist, really. I can't say that I've led a lot of people to the Lord, but
well, I'm just saying, even if you're talking to somebody's listening to you right now,
yeah,
right? How would you help them cross that bridge?
I would just try to instill with them that in Jesus you are complete. Everything that you need is in Him, and He is pursuing you. He wants to have a deep personal relationship with you. He has so much for you, so much better than what you can even imagine, so much better than what you're doing right now. And I suppose that would be where I'd go. I would like to display the results of that relationship with him, and try to
Like evidence, right? Evidence.
exactly, yeah. And they see it, they watch.
Yeah.
I've come across a few guys at work that were pretty critical about God and religion and all that, for sure. Even though they did know, I mean, the one guy I can think of in particular, he told me all about growing up in Sunday school, but he was at a point where he wanted nothing to do with God, and we developed a nice relationship, and we're able to talk about anything and everything. And he's not around anymore, but that was
I,
probably that was a good experience that I had with him.
I like that, Steve. You talk about, you said, I don't know how that I've led a lot of people to the Lord. And I think, but then you talk about, hey, when Mike asked the question, how do you get people to bridge that gap? Well, I think one of the things for me in my experience has been seeing good people live good lives and taking note of those good lives that are being led. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the experience that you have with your brother and the, noticing the peace that he has and wanting that peace. I just feel like, man, that same process is happening with you, right?
Yeah.
It's on display. It's just, that's the life you live, and people are drawn to that and want to know, hey, shoot, what's going on there?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to have some of that in my life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's funny too. I think it's funny too, Tyler, because Steve's here because people are watching him.
Right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Like we're getting to know Steve tonight because of that evidence, or like you were saying, displaying the results. And right now I'm studying, Tyler. I think we're both looking at Peter a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right, in the New Testament, and I love Peter and the way he delivers, because I know Peter, right? We all know Peter at his
Mm-hmm.
worst.
Yeah.
Right.
When you want to talk about not top 10 moments, Peter's got one. And the idea that later on in that New Testament, he is the rock. He is the rock that Christ saw, right? When Peter wasn't a rock, Christ knew that he would be. And I love that thought of, like, I am not who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm doing work and I'm working on these things. I love what you said about complete, right?
Yes.
You are complete with Christ. You are complete. That idea that he's the vine, we're the branch. Without him, we can do nothing. But man, with him, right?
Yeah. And I think everybody's probably born with a hole in their heart, and they're looking for ways to fill it, whether it's money or work or relationships or drugs or alcohol, whatever it is. When they see somebody who has got a peace in their heart without any of that stuff, then I think that draws them to you. And I think probably most of the people that I've had influence on are ones that eventually they come, and they don't directly ask what's going on with you, Steve, but they may just try to sit with you at lunch, or just to be around you, just try to figure out what's going on with Mike or Tyler or Steve.
Yeah. I'm curious, Steve. You mentioned that you moved, you picked up the family, you moved from Oregon down to Redding area and you did the Bible college, right?
Yep.
For 4 years.
Yep.
One of the things that you mentioned, you said God had a different plan, which I've discovered is better.
Yes.
I'm curious if you're willing to share a little bit of that.
Well, it took me many years to realize this, actually, but I had, I think in my mind, I was going to be some big famous preacher, and I was going to have a big church, and I was going to lead people to Christ all over the world. And I when I when I realized that this is what my goal was, even though maybe I didn't actually understand it, that it was my goal at that time, I realized, man, that's pretty self-centered. And it it's not that he was being mean about uh, not letting that happen, but he just had a better plan. And it took me many years, and there was some struggle going on because I became, I thought, what is going on, God? Why am I not where I'm at, what I wanted to be, where I wanted to go? And to cause some issues with my family, with my wife, relationship, and kids, not so much, but somewhat. Uh, and when I finally realized what was going on, I discovered that I'd been walking around with my eyeballs inside out all that time. All I could see was me and where I was wanting to go and where I was wanting to be. And God says, no, you got a wife and kids. You're going to have a better testimony through them in your relationship with them than you are going to be standing on a stage somewhere. So, but it took a lot of time and some hardship for me to realize that. And then, and one of the things that when I recognized that and acknowledged that to him, he led me to our church and to this discipleship program, and I realized this is where he wanted me to be all the time. But it took 30 years to get there.
Wow, I love, and thank you for sharing that, by the way. I love that idea of gosh, I love how you said it too. Eyes are inside out, just looking inward at myself.
No good thing comes
right.
from eyes inside out, right?
But we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
And we've all thought, like, I've got this goal, which is a good goal, right? Like
righteous desire.
Right. It's a righteous desire. I want to help people. And but I think that journey of like discovery and is really interesting, right? And it's difficult, Mike, because I mean I can relate to that to a certain degree, right? Whether that's professionally, personally, whatever it may be, right? You think, well, shoot, I've got this great thing I want to offer, but I'm not there, and why not? Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve, I don't know if you're familiar with the story of the currant bush, right? But the guy who's chopping down a tree because the tree's misshaped and it's not fulfilling its purpose and it's not bearing fruit. And as he's chopping it, he sees the tree kind of weep out, and he imagines the tree isn't too happy with the cutting and the shaping that he's putting the tree through.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, I'm the gardener here, kind of jokingly to the tree. And then he goes forward with his life, and he's denied a promotion that he wanted. And as he's walking away in frustration, kind of even mad at God, raises a fist and like, you knew how bad I wanted that. I had worked hard. I deserve it. The thought comes to him, I'm the gardener here. Right?
Yeah.
Like I've got other things, and I'm shaping you for other things that you don't know yet. And Tyler, we had a guest teach us something, just this idea that when we are frustrated that things aren't going our way, we can be honest with God in those frustrations that
yes,
right. Sure. Gordon DeWitt taught us he's big enough.
Yeah.
He's big enough for us to be frustrated or angry. We don't have to sugarcoat it, and we don't have to act with him. We can go to him and say, man, what is going on? Because that was something that was important to me. I felt like that was something that was coming my way.
Yeah, he is big enough. He can handle it. And one of my favorite verses, I wish I could tell you where it is. It's in Proverbs. It's a man makes his plan, but the Lord directs his steps. And that's where I feel like it has happened to me. I made my plans, and and there was a time, honestly, guys, that almost every day I would say to myself, "Man, I wish I never moved to Redding, California." And because there's a lot of frustration that happened. But then as I see where I am now, I think to myself, well, things would be different. Things wouldn't be the same. Things were different; they wouldn't be the same.
Yeah.
And
Our our
I
our
wouldn't have the
history.
grandkids I got. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
the great uh, son-in-law and daughter-in-law that I have, and so
Our history
that's some
turns on
work
tiny
though.
hinges.
Yeah, and Mike, I feel like, and Steve, that 30-year journey, that's some work, right? That's put in over that time of whether, I'm sure some of it was frustration. I'm sure some of it was good, but just getting to the point where you feel like, okay, God, I accept your plan for me, right? Yeah. And I'm willing to put my plan aside and just do your plan, which I think we all struggle with that, and we've all have struggled with that at different times in our lives, right? But that's some serious work to put in, and to be able to get to a point where you feel like I have peace in this. What does that work look like? Was that something that after a few years you felt like, okay, I'm comfortable with this, or was that just a constant doing work to be able to accept where you are and that God has a different plan for you?
Well, it is quite the journey for sure. It led to some hurts and some from people that I trusted and thought they wouldn't hurt me, and people they were church people, a lot of them, and it led to quitting going to church. It led to actually walking away from the Lord for a while and trying to just be my own man and do whatever I wanted to do. And it got, I always knew God was with me, and He would remind me that He is quite often. But for me, it just got to the place where I was just miserable. I had no peace. I lost my peace, and I mean, it got to the point. And speaking of my brother, my favorite brother, we've always been there for each other. He was there for me when I was really struggling, and I've been there for him. And he's a perfect example of a friend loves at all time, but a brother is born for adversity. And so it just got to the point where I was so miserable that I gave him a call, and he pointed me back to God. And short time later, I just said, Lord, I'm tired of going my own way. My plan that I had, you squashed it. I blamed him for it, so to speak. And I just decided enough is enough. I'm tired of being miserable. I'm turning my life back to you. I know that you have the peace that I desire. And whatever you want for me is what I want. And at that point, I didn't know what his plan was anymore. That was 10 or 12 years ago. 12 years ago or so. So,
wow.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder? Do you ever want, like, I love that perspective, right? I love that journey. In Hollywood, maybe a 23-year-old makes a commitment to Christ and never fails and never, right? Yeah. Like the reality is, I think there are peaks and summits, and there are valleys and low places. And I love too this idea too. Sometimes the person that helps me later is the person that I help. Just that, like Tyler, we've talked a little bit about that. It's just interesting too how that enemy to our souls will have us okay with being miserable for a season. Right? And like, what is that thing that keeps us miserable when no one wants to be miserable? We know the answer, and Christ is there and He's waiting. He's waiting for us, and we're just like, no, I'm gonna go my own way for a little bit.
Hmm.
Well, and I think we've talked about this on this podcast before, but and just from personal experiences, I think that I've found myself in those places where I've inserted pride and ego into those places, and rather than being willing to submit to something that I might even know is the right thing, right? Because
Hmm.
I'm so beholden to this idea that I I believe I'm right, or
Yeah.
I believe I'm justified, or whatever that feeling is. I think it's such a relatable place that we've been, whether it's for you know a day or two or for a year or two, right? I mean, we can find ourselves in that spot pretty easy.
Well, a lot
Hmm.
of times those are detours we don't come back from,
Like,
right?
absolutely.
A lot of times in faith journeys, we get bumped, something happens, hard times, adversity, right? Things don't work out, and we're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm gonna take a break. And a lot of people don't,
Yeah.
sadly, don't come back.
Yeah. Well, even just both my wife and I, we pretty much walked away from God, and it was probably 16 years before we came back.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
Well,
and and the Lord, praise the Lord that He stuck with us and kept pursuing us until we
Yeah.
turned back to Him.
Amen.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he never left, right? He never
Oh no,
left.
no,
Yeah, I'm curious about this. So you meet this third grade girl,
yeah.
and you have your experience at 23. What's to say she's going to be with you when you have this experience, right? I mean, you're all in. What is that conversation like? Is she ahead of you? Is she behind you? How do you guys sync up in this relationship with Jesus Christ?
Well, she, I mean, that would be part of her story, but
Yeah.
um, um, the on that day that in my driveway in my car when we got done praying, my brother and I walked in the house, and the first thing I told my wife was I just gave my life to Jesus, and she was um, sort of taken aback about it. She'd been raised a Catholic and gone to church all her life, and she's thinking, I've known God all my life. Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
And it was. I think I'm free to tell you this. I don't think she would mind, but she went to her mother and a few weeks later, and she said, "I think I'm going to leave. I think I'm going to leave, Steve." And her mom said, "Well, is he a better man now than he was?" And she had to confess and admit that I was a better guy than I was before that. And it wasn't just maybe 3 or 4 months. And this is probably one of my greatest honors is that I did indeed get to lead her. So we we were in bed in the night one time, and she woke up and said, "Steve, I want to ask Jesus into my." So I helped her pray that prayer, and that's where that started.
Wow.
Ah, that's cool.
That's a sacred experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And thank you for sharing that. Uh,
Yeah.
Steve, I'm curious if and you're doing this work right now in the ministry work that you're doing now with Emerge. But I'm curious, what is that conversation like that you have with those that have uh, walked away or put their faith on a shelf and find themselves uh, sort of wandering? What's that conversation? What's that conversation like that you would have with them?
Well, it's been I had never really done any mentoring before for this emerge, so I had to do a lot of learning. The last couple of years, we had I did two group group mentoring, and we had some guys that it's incredible the experiences they've had growing up in their lives and the hurts they've experienced. So, like I said, the first thing that I try to do is earn their trust. I flat out tell them, listen, guys, I'm going to be completely honest with you about my life. You can trust me with yours, and you start there. And it takes time to continue meeting and sharing your life with them, and slowly picking at them to open up their lives. And once you gain their trust, it's amazing what they'll tell you, what they'll open up with. I mean, that's what they're there for. They're looking for somebody to tell their story to. I just got to verbalize thing that happened to me. I need somebody that will listen and not judge, not shame me, and not put me down about it. And so as they do that, again, I try to always point them to Jesus, because like I said earlier, we are complete in him. And if I lead them to something else, to somebody else, then it's good. That will fail them. Jesus never will.
Mm.
Anyhow,
I love that. I love that.
That will eventually, right? There might be some initial relief of something, but it's not the way. It's not the answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pointing
Well, I
them
mean,
up.
and I like to say that a lot of guys, a lot of people will try anything and everything, and it's good for a little while, but it's like poison. And the problem with poison is it always tastes good, but it always destroys.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
But I love the image of everyone walking around with a hole in their heart, because you're exact. I mean, we're going to be hurting, and a lot of times hurt people, and that's a whole nother thing. But this idea of like a lot of the thing, what do you reach for when you're hurting, is a question we sometimes kick around in our conversations with others, right? Like, do we reach for poison and perpetuate that, right? And we might numb it, but then that hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think when I hear you talk about trust, Steve, I hear Tyler, I hear the conversations we've had about vulnerability.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And as men, for whatever reason, we are really good at building up some walls, putting up some fronts, and saying, "Oh, nothing to see here. Everything's good."
Yeah. Yeah.
In the end,
exactly. It's not. And we hold on to those things and we keep them secret. And I watched a documentary about Michael J. Fox. New one. It's called Still, and it's about him and his Parkinson's disease, and how when he first discovered it, he tried to hide it, and later on, as it got worse and worse, he said he can't hide it anymore, and he quoted he said, "You're only as sick as your secrets," and I thought that was amazing quote, and that's what we try to do with these guys. Let them know their secrets are safe with us, and once you got to have somebody that knows everything about you, maybe.
Well, when you talk about Jesus Christ and pursuing us, nothing is secret there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
He knows everything.
I don't know who we're fooling. And I actually, I jotted this down as you were talking a little bit about your struggles. Sometimes we have this notion that as dads and husbands, we can struggle and no one in our life will feel it. And that is just a false notion, right? Because people are hitched to our wagon, and when our wagon gets bumpy, everyone feels it.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things I tell these guys is the best thing that you can do for your wife, for your kids, to get as close to God as you possibly can.
I love that. Yeah.
It's like you said, Mike, we think that our secrets aren't hurting anybody else, and the things we struggle with and what we do, but they are hurting others, because we're not the complete men that we could be. We should be, and they're missing out. Missing out.
What I think sometimes too, the responsibility, a lot of times we play on that edge, and those that are connected to us end up going over that edge.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And there's some tremendous sacred responsibility as husbands and dads to get as close as we can, right? Get as close as we can to God, because people that are attached are going to, they're going to reap the blessings or some of the consequences for that. And I can't help but think too, like this idea of, Tyler, we talk sometimes in scriptures and in church, we talk about a broken heart and a contrite spirit. And I think sometimes that notion of broken might be misunderstood, where I think of it as breaking a horse, right? Where you take that will, that drive, you take all of that energy heading in a direction, and instead of like, no, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, I'm going to go my own way, we submit and we break that, and not become anything lesser by any means. When we break that, we actually turn our lives over to God, and he can do so much more with it than we could ever do on our own.
I like that visual of breaking a horse. I've never thought of it that way. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is coming from a guy, Steve, sounds like you've got some rancher in your background. I've ridden a horse one time, right? So I have no idea what I'm talking about, but at
it
least
sounds really good. It sounds great, Mike. So come on, roll with it, man.
Yeah. It's Tristan in Legends of the Fall when he's coming in with all those wild horses, right? It's like, it's like that. It's something.
Well, I never ride a horse either, but my dad had cattle, and
you rode a horse.
Yeah, we chased them around on foot, but they could be stubborn for sure, and you just think at them, you look at them and say, it'd be so much easier if you just do what I say. Go where I go. It's easier for everybody.
That's it. Yeah. I love that.
Steve, in your journey, what's the best life advice anybody's ever given you?
Well, I think be grateful. I think in the midst of all the turmoil and the bad things that may happen to us, well, there's got to be something that's we can be grateful for. And we talk about peace, and I really believe that gratitude is the doorway to peace. The Bible says, be anxious for nothing, but by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your request be made known to God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding. When it makes absolutely no sense to have peace, you can have it through gratitude.
I love that. I love that idea of gratitude as a doorway to peace.
Yeah. I can't tell you who told me that, but I remember.
Well, that's fantastic.
I can't think of anything more upstream right now than the concept of gratitude and peace. Yeah. Right? Like the world wants us to be going in this particular direction. You talked about a little bit how God uses the times and the events around to do his work. And I think folks are looking for that peace, right? Looking for it and can't find it. And maybe they pick up some knockoffs that the world provides, and it fails, right? It fades right in their hands. But this idea that peace can be had in any circumstance, gratitude can be had in any circumstance.
Yeah.
That's pretty counter 2023. I love it.
Well, and I love the, just to circle back to that experience you had with your brother and just recognizing the peace that he had and wanting that. I think that that's a common theme in this world, right? I mean, people want peace. Now, the question is, where do we turn, right, for that? I mean, that's the question. But, you mentioned that, you work with a gentleman who you're able to have some really good conversations, and you're sitting having lunch together. And I feel like that's where the work's done, that
It is.
people like Steve and Derek and that are just living good lives, like that's people gravitate to that.
Yep.
Right. And they want to know like what's different about this person. They may not ask you, hey Steve, why are you different? I want what you have, but they certainly recognize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and speaking of my brother, when I first started recognizing that and growing up on a cattle ranch, during that time, little story, my mom and dad, they took a little vacation in the middle of the winter. That was the only time my dad really had any time to go anywhere. And so he left feeding the cattle to me and my brother. My brother would go in the morning and feed, and then I would go in the afternoon and feed. And we take my dad's truck and we load hay bales in it and take it out to the field and dump it off. And at that time, there was a radio station in Bend, Oregon, that was a Christian radio station. And when I got done feeding the cows, and I would park the truck, I would tune the radio to that station, and I would leave it on, thinking that my brother's going to get in this truck in the morning. He's going to turn the ignition on, and that radio station is going to be on, and he's going to know that I'm curious, or I'm interested. So I was leaving little hints here and there, and I think
little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, and people will do that if we pay attention. We will see them. He never mentioned anything to me about it, so I don't know if he noticed or not. That's what I did.
Yeah. Man,
well, there's
really
some courage. There's some courage in that faith, right? Like, when asking the question, brother, what's going on?
Yeah.
And the brother having the courage to let you, like, this is what's going on. But like, I have to say, the folks that are hanging out with you today, it's not just about what happened when you were 23.
Oh, no.
Right?
No.
Like, so what are you doing? We've got to be doing something today to be keeping that hope alive, right? What gives you hope today? What are the things that you do that gives you hope?
My hope is in God and who He is. And there's an author named A.W. Tozier who said the first thing that comes to our mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. So I try to keep my mind on who God is. He is infinite. He is sovereign. He is eternal. He's bigger than any issue or problem that I can come up with. He's all-knowing. He's not taken by surprise by something that happens to me. I often tell people that they'll share something that's going on in their life, and I'll say, God's aware of this. He didn't turn away and then look back and say, "Oh my gosh, what has happened to you?" He knew what was going on all this time. And he's bigger than that, and He loves you, and His love is perfect, and perfect love casts out fear. And so I keep that. That's what gives me hope.
That's a great.
I think that's so powerful, because a lot of folks that aren't maybe haven't had the experiences yet with the Holy Ghost, or with the scriptures, or with prayer. They would view God as some dictator, right? Or the commandments as rules that we've got to follow, and some angry God that sits up in heaven and just drops pianos on people. Or I think that's really important, that we remember that God, in the end, is His most important feature is that He's a father.
Mm-hmm.
He loves us. Right.
Well, I think when we know God correctly and understand Him, then we understand ourselves better. And one of the things that I began to understand for myself was that I was a son. He's my father, just like you said, and that is very key. He is a father.
Yeah, that's a powerful thought, right? I was just having this conversation a couple days ago with some people, and it just this idea that, when we start to understand who we are, right, as children of God, we treat ourselves better. We treat other people better, right? We start to recognize that it's not just us, it's everybody. So there's this like ripple effect of good that happens when we have that realization. I think that's a powerful place to find ourselves in.
Indeed.
Well, so you mentioned you've got a couple of kids.
Yep.
From where you're at on life's path, any advice for folks trying to raise kids these days?
Love them no matter what. My kids are great kids. They
What are their names?
Angela and Andy, and they're I'm not sure where they are with God right now, but they know Him, and they may have different ideas about theology and church and whatnot than I do, but I don't ever put them down for that, and I love them no matter what, and try to be around. Unfortunately, they're my daughter's in Bella Vista and my son's here in Redding,
Oh, that's good.
so I get to see him often. We spend the holidays together every year, and my daughter has 3 kids, and my son has a son, and they're just the most wonderful grandkids you could ever ask for. They're really good people, even if they're young. They are good kids. They're good people. So
That's the list, right, Tyler? Love them.
That's it. That's
yeah,
it. Love 'em. Yeah.
We had a guest come on long time ago, and he, you ready? You ready? Here's the list. Get your pencil, get your paper. Let me give you the list. Here we go. Ready? Number 1, love them.
That's it.
That's the list.
That's the list.
That's funny. Yeah.
Oh man. I love that. That's it's interesting, right? The journeys that we find ourselves on. I love that you talked about having this plan and working that process to be, wherever that led you, and then back to where you are now. And I love the work that you're doing, right? Those experiences that you've had throughout life that led you to where you are now is part of that great work that you're doing with these other men at the stirring. I just love that. I love how God works in our lives. Sometimes we don't understand it, and we may go kicking and screaming, but at the end, there's something, it's like you said, it took me a while, but I realized He had a better plan.
Well, I also think, our lives are meant for others, and our experiences are meant for others. Paul says that he writes to the Corinthians, and he says, my intention is to comfort you with the same comfort that God has comforted me with. And so we've got to pass on our experiences. They're not just for us alone.
Yeah, it's not the gospel of accumulation.
Right.
It's not about hoarding.
Giving.
It's about passing through, right? I think of Christ's parables and his teachings of like the debtor being forgiven and running off and demanding payment of somebody that owed him. Is like, what do we do?
I know.
Right.
Pass it along.
Yeah.
We're all beggars, right? We're all beggars, and this isn't about getting more than my neighbor. It's about loving, passing it on.
Yeah. Well, this has been a ton of fun, Steve. I've appreciated the opportunity to kind of get to know you and spend some time. Mike and I were joking before you got on. We're like, man, if anybody that is a friend of Derek Anderson is a friend of ours, and we're just excited to spend some time with you and get to know you.
Well, it's been my pleasure. I'd like to get you know you guys more. I'd love to really meet you in person and shake your hand, and you know,
We'd
that'd
love
be
that.
great.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tyler's down at the other end of the state. He has promised visitors that he will buy tacos if you go visit him, but
I'm down in San Diego, but
Oh.
I do make it up to Reading every so often. And
Okay.
if you're ever down here, tacos are on me.
All right.
but Steve, I will
I'll bring
definitely.
my grandson. He loves tacos.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. The more the merrier.
But
Okay.
Steve, I know where to find you any given Sunday, so I will definitely have the opportunity
Yeah.
to swing by the stirring, and we'll include the work that you're doing in our show notes for people that are in the Reading area and would like to connect. I just love that idea of helping people, right? Helping people along the way. I think that it's cool. It's quite a responsibility. It feels like to take on that role of mentoring somebody.
Yeah.
And I know you don't take that lightly, but now more than ever, it feels like that is the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Can you paint for me a picture of a time? You talked about grandchildren. That's got to be making life pretty sweet these days. Can you paint me a picture of a time when you looked around and said, "This right here is a rich moment"?
Well, I know that when my daughter was born, I was totally taken in with her. You know, I think daughters have a way of wrapping daddy around their finger, you know, and my daughter Shirley did when she was born. And when her kids came along, I felt kind of the same way. I just thought this is blessed. This is most special. This is my favorite thing. My kids, and you know, I want to also before we leave here is give gratitude and a recognition to my wife. She has hung with me. You know, when I try to
What's
go,
her name?
her
What's
name is Sandy.
Sandy.
And she hung in there with me when I was trying to do my own thing, go up my own way, and you know, I really wasn't including her much. I was going to do my thing, and she comes along, and that's the way it's going to be. I didn't give her a choice. She hung along in there with me all these years, and she's really, I think, has really kept our family together. She grew up in a tight family, and she has lived that out in our family. So
Yeah, I love.
wanted to
Yeah,
That's a
recognize her.
great tribute.
The air turns a little sweeter when we start honoring people. Steve, how do you honor your mom and dad these days?
My mom and dad were great and wonderful people. My dad was a hard worker. He was one of those guys that was led by example more than words. We never really had many deep conversations. My mom loved the Lord with all her heart. I know that she saved my life many times through her prayers. We grew up, my brothers and I like to think that we grew up kind of as like free range children. We just kind of figured it out as we went, you know. But I had a great life growing up on the ranch, on the farm. We were hike the canyon every day. We had free reign of the whole property, and we could come and go as we pleased. We grow up. We'd often find ourselves down in the canyon with our rifles, and we'd be gone all day long. My mom never worried about us unless we didn't come home for dinner. But and like I said, my dad was not much for words, but I loved him. Had the honor of being beside his bed when he passed away, and that was a very holy moment in my life and my experience. And I just honor them for staying together. They were married 67 and a half years. My dad always included that half a year.
Yeah.
So, they were a great example of putting each other first and loving each other greatly. And so,
Wow.
But 67 and a half, you talk about something that isn't so 2023.
That's right.
Well, and then there's another honor that I have to give my wife. Well, in February, we'll have 47.
Wow. Congratulations.
You're catching up.
Yep.
Yeah. That is
We were
fantastic.
pretty young when we were.
That is fantastic. 47. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing too that holy moment that you shared with your dad. I mean, I can.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we think about that, right? I think it's important that I'm kind of big on beginning with that end in mind, and I'm trying to live a life where my kids will want to be there with me when I'm saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Right? We can have have those relationships and do what needs to be done so that those relationships are all the way through life, and I'm sure you think about them often.
Yep, I do.
Well, Steve, this is patterned after our favorite holiday movie. I don't know where you stand on It's a Wonderful Life, but we're big fans, and
I love that movie.
Yeah, well, we love the end. We love that closing scene when George's little brother Harry comes home, war hero. George is a mess. George's life is kind of falling apart. He's hit pretty much rock bottom, where at one point he was on a bridge thinking he should end it all. Yeah. And then the movie turns and finds him on that same bridge praying to God that he wants to live again. And everything changes with that perspective, right? So he's there, and his little brother Harry raises a glass and toasts George as the richest man in town, and we know the truth. We know George has got a warrant for his arrest, right? He's missing a few bucks in the bank, and Potter and the police are knocking. So we love the irony there. We end our podcast every episode, 149 episodes. We've ended with the same question. So Steve, what does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
Well, I think much like George, it's not the things that we have, but it's the relationships we have, and the love that we get to experience and get to have and get to give. And I have to credit my brother, and there's a list of other people I could name, but my wife and my kids, and those are the things that make me rich.
You ever think about what life would be like if you and your brother didn't have that conversation when you were 23?
Well, I don't think I have, but if I was to think about it, I don't think I'd be married to Sandy. I think I'd probably be still in Oregon, maybe, I don't know, wandering away in the backwoods somewhere, trying to be alone, trying to make it by myself.
Yeah, miserable, maybe.
Miserable. That's where I would be.
Well, thank goodness for a brother that had found peace and giving you the opportunity to have that conversation about bringing peace into your own life.
His name is Ken.
Ken. Well, thank goodness for Ken. And you know what, Steve? I'm so grateful that we were able to spend some time tonight. I've loved talking to you. I appreciate the man that you are and the example that you are and the work that you're doing. And thanks so much for sharing some of that with Mike and I tonight.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate those encouraging words. There's a guy in the Bible named Barnabas. He's called the son of encouragement, and you guys are that. And he's my guy. He's the one who I think I try to live by, and you guys certainly exemplify that also. So thank you.
Well, I can tell you, Steve. I can tell you that we get more out of this than our guests and our listeners, and it's a selfish venture, right? We're just trying to be better because, by golly, it's hard.
You're giving it away. You're giving it away, and everybody appreciates that.
We got to share.
We appreciate you, and we look forward to chatting again. I look forward to being in Reading and shaking your hand at some point, Steve.
Then we have tacos in Reading.
All right. Well, then I'm coming up. I like some of those tacos in Reading too. So we'll come up and we'll do tacos when I get up there.
Sounds good.
All right, Steve. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.